Hello, and welcome back to the Void Century podcast. Adam here today to bring you chapter 987 of One Piece, The Loyal Retainer Kinemon. Now, a few things to note before we get started. There was a mix-up with audio streams last week, and unfortunately, incomplete audio was posted to the podcast. So we rectified that a couple hours later, but for anybody who listened to it, that wasn't the final. I am sorry. Again, to reiterate, for those of you who missed the last chapter, Ed is moving and he's going through a lot of personal stuff right now, so he's going to be off the stream for about a month. So today I have a guest. We have a guest star today. I'm bringing in my friend Matt, who's been an avid One Piece watcher and reader for a couple years now. Matt and I are very good friends. Matt, would you like to introduce yourself, say a couple things maybe?
Definitely. Thanks for having me on. And we'd have to define what really good friends are, by the way. Don't want to confuse the listeners out there.
Oh, super good, really good, best friends, whatever you want to call us. We have bracelets and matching necklaces someplace.
Oh my God! Just because you made me, doesn't mean I wore it. Okay, dude.
Okay, well, I thought we were friends, but okay. So, I guess we'll get started into the chapter then. So, the chapter begins. We get a flashback of Kaido getting cut by Odin. In dragon form, you see the X-shaped scar. You see Kaido going all white-eyed. You see the pot boiling. You see Odin throw the scabbards out of the pot, proclaiming that he wants to open the borders of the Wano country. We see the scabbards fleeing. Again, we see Odin tell Kaido not to underestimate his samurai. Very forebodingly, Kaido just tells Odin that his words are going to follow him. Odin actually goes out kind of Hero Look-esque. We got deprived of this dialogue previously in the flashback. Odin says he doesn't care if he's forgotten. He doesn't worry about it because his will is going to live on through the scabbards. We see the panel one more time where Kaido unfortunately shoots Odin. Kaido himself goes back into real time, and we see him falling off of the execution platform, getting comboed attacked by all the scabbards. We get a close-up of Kinemon shoving and thrusting his sword deeper into Kaido's chest. We see Kiku slicing up one of Kaido's hands, Neko's grabbing one of Kaido's arms, and we see Ryo'o. He's got like dual swords kind of scissored on Kaido's neck. Kaido's just incapacitated right now, and he comments on how his wound from Odin is pulsing. He's like, why am I in so much pain right now? Why are these blades piercing through me? And then he comes to the realization that the scabbards are actually using Ryo'o, but he remarks that it's Odin's, so that's pretty interesting. The Beast Pirates are like, oh my god, is that Kaido? Is he screaming? We see a close-up of most of the scabbards. We see Denjiro, Ryo'o, Nekomamushi, and Ashura Doji all combo attacking Kaido into the ground, and we see this huge beam of energy as Kaido gets thrust into the ground. We see the Beast Pirates are like, oh my god, that attack was so powerful that Kaido's actually underground. The Beast Pirates rally and they're like, we have to kill those samurai, there might still be intruders someplace, and just at that moment, we see Hyogoro and the rest of the Yakuza throw off their Beast Pirate costumes, and they're like, I won't let you Beast Pirates interfere, we'll protect them. So Big Mom comments, oh, what a dangerous feast this is Kaido dead? And the Beast Pirates are mad that the rebels would come in disguises. We see that Yamato and Luffy, in all the confusion, want to attack Kaido. And then out of nowhere, we see Ulti speed blitzing Yamato. Luffy refers to Ulti as Headbutt here. And Ulti apparently is still mad about being one-shotted by Yamato before. Yamato tells Ulti that the day to become Kozuki Odin has finally come. And Ulti's like, what are you talking about? Are you crazy? Are you right in the head? And some random Beast Pirate fodder like, Yamato, your dad's in a lot of trouble. There's a lot of rebels attacking the banquet hall, and Yamato's like, I'm not your ally anymore. I don't give a crap if my dad dies, so whatever. So in the commotion, Big Mom sees Luffy with Yamato, and she's like, Straw Hat. Luffy's like, not now, I'm busy, I'm doing stuff. We get a scene of Carrot and Nami being held up by Big Mom's new homies. And her and Carrot make a plan to escape. Nami shoots a black ball at a homie. Carrot uses Electro and incapacitates the homies. And we see Big Mom talking to Luffy, and she's like, I've come all the way here to Wano to beat you to death. The next panel, we get kind of a beat up Kaido, kind of connecting the dots. He's like, nobody believed Crazy Orochi, but all the connections and all the things he said are actually making sense now. From the shadows in Odin's castle to Punk Hazard, Dressrosa, Zoe. All of you were able to deceive me by hiding in the shadow of the Straw Hats. I can't believe that you joined with the pirates. And then he goes on to comment, some of the scabbards endured 20 years while others jumped through the future and ran away. And yet here they are, and they all managed to gather good soldiers. However, you have to realize that since you allied with the Straw Hats, they're going to abandon you and escape the moment that you lose. And Kaido's like, I've already beat Straw Hat Luffy once, so it's whatever, I don't have to worry about him. We actually see in kind of an emotional panel that Kinemon stands up for Luffy, and he says, you're kind of insulting him by saying that Luffy is different from you and all the other pirates. He's the one that's going to be the Pirate King someday, standing atop all these seas. Even if we die, he's still going to be standing. The dawn is eventually going to arise in the Wano country, and that's our promise to our Lord.
We then cut over to the floor of the battle, and Big Mom looks at Luffy and is like, "Why are you here? What are you doing here?" And I love Luffy's reaction to it. Right? They were like, "Oh, you better not say, oh, I'm here to defeat Kaido or declare something." And of course, in Luffy faction, he does that, right? He comes in and says, I've come here to kick all of your guys' asses. This is war. This is all-out war. This really shows, Luffy's lack of caring what other people really think about how, the message he says, and more about how he says it, which I really love about this character. So yeah, he challenges all of them. Big Mom, the commanders, Orochi, the forces, all of them to a fight. So Big Mom, of course, laughs this off, doesn't really think too much, thinks that, hey, your forces are tiny, they're small, there's only, maybe hundreds of you guys when we have thousands. And as soon as this happens, I love, you get to see this cut over to, all of Luffy's forces. You get to see them slowly revealing themselves. You get to see the prisoners from Udon, the samurai from the Flower Capital, Law's crew, and you see they show Marco and Perospero fighting at the front, and they realize oh no, there's a lot more than what we think is here. There's a ton of samurai here. This is serious. This is real. So Kaido, says, hey, this is serious, guys. Stop the feast. We're at war now. We're at war. We're here. So the rebels, rally. We're ready to fight. We're going into it. Kaido says, Luffy, let's bring it on. Let's fight. Kaido goes full dragon mode. Flies up into the sky. The scabbards are hanging on to him. Kinemon's like, hey, Luffy, thanks so much. So at the end, we get this amazing panel. This last pager is so awesome. You have Kaido up in the sky, a huge moon silhouetting him, which I think is fantastic, because, down in the panel, we see some really cool things with that. All the scabbards surrounding him. He's like, hey, we're going to need some extra large place to have this epic battle, which I think is fantastic. Everyone's around him, the Mink tribe's there, and all of a sudden, at the end, I love this this last panel with, the full moon. I can see perfectly. Really sets it up awesome for this next chapter.
Oh, I think so too. Apparently the Mink's all there, laid a trap for Kaido, and they're all going to go Sulong, and then we just see that nasty panel at the end of Nekomamushi like, hey, I think now's a good time to go Sulong.
I think it's the stars definitely aligned with them on this attack, and I had a feeling that this night would have a full moon. So it's really good to have that confirmed, obviously, because the Mink tribe is just way more powerful in Sulong mode. But it's good to see that it's not after some time of the battle went on. It looks like at the start of the battle we will see this right away, which is fantastic.
It is. It sounds pretty good. So one of the things that I'm kind of bummed out over is I'm still waiting for Act 3 to end. So apparently, if you haven't been keeping up, Wano is in kind of the structure of a kabuki play, and we're currently in Act 3. And at the end of Act 3, there's supposed to be like a great tragedy after the battle starts. So apparently, there was a rumor like 1 or 2 weeks ago that Oda's editor, an editor that's been with him for like 2 years, read the new stuff and got really emotional over a certain chapter. So he's like, "Oh, I've never cried over a chapter like this before." So a lot of people were speculating that one of the scabbards were going to die, and I still think that there's death flags for Kinemon and Denjiro, and just the title of the chapter, Loyal Retainer Kinemon. I seriously thought that there was going to be death flags before I read it.
That's definitely a possibility. I think it's interesting because I feel like all these last chapters have had a lot of emotion in them. Like even the Momo chapter with not resounding his name for safety of not being executed. That was extremely emotional for that character. And if I recall, the thing you're referring to is it happened a couple weeks ago where he said that. So I think there was a lot of confusion on which chapter he was talking about. It could have been that chapter. Could be the next chapter coming up. Kind of keeps you on the edge of your seat, right? Which one was it?
Yeah, I totally think so too. I'm thinking it's more like a strategic marketing ploy now.
It could have been. I mean, I think that anyone that works on this show is definitely so emotionally invested into it. Think about how us the fans were so emotionally invested to it. I wouldn't imagine how much I would be like if this was part of my day-to-day job. These characters are so rich. You just have so much emotional attachment to them.
Oh yeah, I totally understand that. And now that we're definitely getting into a big battle in the new world, and we know that Wano is connected to the Void Century, and we've already been shaken up with the death of Odin, I definitely think that there is the possibility for a couple more characters to die this arc. I mean, we
Yeah,
already lost Yasuye, rip.
no one's safe anymore. We're entering, the final stages of, I think, this epic story. And to your point, some of the best stories have the best sacrifices along the way. We've already had some, and I think there's a lot more to come, which is extremely keeps me on the edge of the seat every chapter to see what happens next.
So there's one thing I want to point out, kind of moving onward to a little section here, is I found it rather interesting that Luffy watched Orochi get executed, and yet when he's proclaiming that he's going to kick everybody's ass, he makes a point to mention Orochi and Orochi's forces.
Yeah, that is pretty interesting, right? I think there's a lot of play there too, right? When you talk about Orochi's forces, they're kind of pledging their sword, so to speak, to Kaido. Do we really believe that they're along with his vision, or do they do that to save themselves from last chapter, right? I think it's very interesting. Will their loyalty change as the war progresses?
So one of the big theories I have, at least for the Beast Pirates, is that Kaido, since his crew is only based on power and he likes to recruit other captains and other factions into his crew, there's always been like dissent brewing in his crew. There's always been like this huge faction of people that are unhappy. And I think the moment that he takes over, the samurai, and he takes over the Oniwabanshu, that's like 6,000 more people added to his crew that absolutely hate him. So it was even juxtaposed last chapter where, okay, well, the scabbards have waited 20 years to fulfill the wishes of their dead lord, right? However, Orochi's forces just flip.
I completely agree. And we already know we're gonna see at least one so to speak mutiny against Kaido, which is definitely from Sword, right? You have X-Drake, which is definitely going to not pledge allegiance to Kaido during this war. I think he's gonna look at like the whole Sword is gonna look at that as a moment to seize the opportunity to carry out whatever plan they were going to have. And I think that might act as a catalyst to promote the idea for other people within his crew to do much of the same.
You know what I would honestly like to see? I do admit that X Drake hasn't been involved since we saw him a couple chapters ago with all the Flying Six being revealed. I would actually love to see Sword be the counterpoint for Cypher Pole Aegis Zero that's currently in Wano. So we know that there's government agents for the world government currently on Wano. I think it would be very interesting if the forces loyal to the Gorosei and the Tenryobito square off against like the Splinter Cell group within the Marines.
I think that's a very fair point. We don't really know, and I don't think it's been declared, and you can keep me honest on this. Whose sword loyalty is to? Ultimately, of course, the people, but in terms of a power structure, who really oversees them from an operational standpoint? We clearly know what Cipher Pole, Zero is reporting to, but I don't think we've seen 100% who's behind the strings of Sword.
Honestly, I would like to see that Sengoku's the head of it. Because we know that, what was it? Was it the Mountain Valley incident? The incident where the world government and the Rocks Pirates squared off? We know that Garp and Sengoku were always the tag team back in the day. However, it was Garp and Roger that faced up, or that teamed up. I'd like to believe that Sengoku was there too, but he might have been incapacitated, but he knows like the true story of what went on there, and he knows the reason why the world government's not to be trusted, especially because he was fleet admiral, for God's sake. So he was in the same position that Akainu is currently in. So he knows how crappy that the Gorosei are. You know what I mean?
Definitely. In regards to the rocks, Roger Garp, um, you know,
Rumble.
Rumble, yeah. Whether or not he was there at that incident, I don't think would matter much because of their rapport. Garp would have told him 100% what went down, and he would have believed it. And I think that we can't take Garp out of this equation. He didn't have a high enough rank, so to speak, but I think from the command and the respect that he had, he could be behind Sword. We don't know.
I think that's 100% possible. Another thing that I want to kind of point you in that might be a red herring too, but it also might have like some feasibility, is you got to think Akainu has, or Akainu, whatever you want to call him, Magma Dog, has a tattoo of a sword on his arm. So what if Akainu is the leader of Sword, but it's totally ideologically different from Akainu?
Ooh, or what if he's like, double agent, like playing into the Gorusei and acting like the dog of the military, but he might be, playing into it a little bit. Um, I think that would be totally so far off of what we've seen of his character. But, if we're gonna play into the fact that, he has symbols on his body, giving that, foreshadowing, we would have to think that he would have to go against what the world government wanted.
So here's a thought too. Let's extrapolate that even further and put our tinfoil hats on. So what if he is the reason why Aokiji left the Marines? Him and Aokiji squared off and had that battle. What if they only had that battle just to make it believable so that they could actually get Aokiji into the Blackbeard pirate?
And what if he's like the mastermind behind Sword, like the top, undercover, admiral, so to speak, the admiral of Sword, or.
Yeah, it's 100% possible. I totally agree with you. I
Ooh,
think that like we know ideologically that Akainu and Aokiji completely hate each other, but they did work together for a long time, even though they disagreed with each other, and maybe they realized that this is for the greater good. And even now, we see Akainu getting frustrated with the world government, and the Tenryubito, and the Gorosei telling him what to do because he wants to run the Marines the way he wants to. He doesn't want to take orders like a dog.
definitely. I think that, I could go on for hours about how deep, we could tie this back to, having, one center point of a bad body or bad guy within the One Piece universe. Um, we've seen a lot of other, anime manga go that direction at the very end, where you're like, oh, well, that guy's not that bad. Like even going back to, Bleach, for example, with like Aizen, when at the end, when we step all the way that far back, they always pivot, and there's always like, oh, there's someone more, bigger and badder that they will team up to fight, which is just an interesting thing. I don't think One Piece will really play out that way. I don't think that's really Oda's style. I think he likes to have a well diverse universe of characters that all have, different points of view on a scenario that conflict.
I think so too, but we know a couple big bads that are currently in the story. We got Akainu, we got Blackbeard, we got Imu-sama, and we got the Gorosei. So those are currently, those are the big bads. Some of them might be the endgame big bad in the story, but I don't see it pivoting kind of like Naruto did, where it's like, hey, you finally defeated the big bad. Oh, just kidding. There's a bigger bad. I don't think it's going to be like that, and I really hope not. I think Oda's above using those kinds of tropes.
For sure. I mean, you can even see this because, like, Luffy, for example, he doesn't, from what I can recall, he doesn't have any hate against Blackbeard. He doesn't target him individually and think, I need my vengeance. Us, the viewers of One Piece have kind of made that up, where we're like, Blackbeard's a really bad guy. He needs to be stopped. But at the end of the day, I don't feel like the characters really feel that way, so to speak. They know that he is very powerful, not to be trifled with, but they're not looking to take him down by any means.
I would like to argue a counterpoint to that, whereas I do agree with you that Luffy's not going to change like his whole journey simply because he's got a vendetta against Blackbeard. We saw that when Luffy faced off against Blackbeard at Impel Down, like Luffy was pissed, and that's before Blackbeard even killed his brother. So, when they finally meet up, like there's no words, it's just fighting. Maybe there's words, maybe Blackbeard's gonna taunt Luffy again about how his brother cried and was tormented, this, that, whatever. I think Blackbeard might show up to Wano. I think it would be a perfect opportunity for Blackbeard to get the strongest zone that's out there and truly ascend to like big, big bad status.
I do agree. I think if he's really on the hunt for powerful devil fruit, this would be the perfect boiling pot, so to speak, of the ability to capitalize on capturing and obtaining those devil fruits.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that the Blackbeard pirates are going to show up. We know that they're currently MIA after destroying Baltigo, which was the hideout of the revolutionaries. What do you think's up with Sabo? Do you think Sabo's actually dead?
Oh man, I think it's so much uncertainty. I think either he fled and they assume maybe he was crushed or something. There, I don't think until they actually show it, in manga and anime, any other type of show that you watch, unless they show you them dying or their body, you can never assume that they're dead or captured. It could be just something to place in the back of your mind to be like, oh man, this is something we're gonna have to go through. But there's no proof or evidence yet.
Here's what it could be. Since the world government has this new weapon that was alluded to that they're so into that they would dissolve the warlord system. So Vegapunk and the world government have this kind of crazy super weapon. It could be an ancient weapon. It could be something more Vegapunk related that's crazy, right? What if the, oh, we killed Sabo was a ploy to draw the revolutionaries in to kind of like a Whitebeard-esque war, like a Marineford kind of war, just to eliminate the rebels once and for all with this new technology?
I think that's a possibility. It concerns me though because I don't think what they have is as powerful or strong as what we think. Because when they got wind of the Kaido Big Mom alliance that could be brewing, they were deeply concerned. They didn't bring up any equipment or like XP 0 or 1 or a new rendition of that or new version of a secret weapon that would help them combat that back, at least from the Navy perspective.
But they also alluded to a great cleansing on the horizon. So, like, Imu's got to have some kind of forces if he's going to plan to take out a majority of the world's population.
Oh, Buster Call for sure, man. Like, think about how devastating that was.
I think it goes beyond that. Like, a Buster Call is, like, island level. But here we're talking, like, multiple, if not countries, just annihilated.
You think like all of paradise just be like wiped out in like one fell swoop?
No, not necessarily, but maybe it's not even like standard naval technology. What if it's more like a plague? We see that chemical weapons in One Piece are a thing.
That's very interesting. I think there's a lot of interesting ways they could go about that. I think the
Hold on.
What's up?
So talking about like how they might have like a poison or some kind of biological warfare. So I think the reason why the D's or the Ancient Kingdom and the world government had a falling out is I believe that the D's were a community that, or the Ancient Kingdom was a community that accepted members of all races, whereas the Tenryubito and the Celestial Dragons and the world government were all about human purity and the superiority of the human race. So that's why they broke the Ancient Kingdom apart and like subjugated all the members of other species.
That's a definitely. I mean, I think that yeah. I mean, I agree 1,000%.
So, do you have any kind of wonky endgame theories you want to talk about, or do you want to stick to the Wano stuff for right now?
I think Wano for now. I think we can go off. I think there's a lot of interesting theories and discussions off of this chapter, and if we tie it back to there, I think that would give a lot of time.
So, Luffy facing off against Big Mom. What are your thoughts?
100% don't think it's gonna happen, man. I think that Kaido is the stronger Yonko, and I think we've already seen a Big Mom Luffy skirmish, and we've seen Kaido decimate Luffy in one hit. So I think that if Luffy is able to take out Kaido, I think that's like a clear signal that he'll be able to take out Big Mom like 100%.
I think Big Mom's powers aren't good for fighting Luffy. Besides her physical attack and defense, and her homies, we know that she's she's pretty weak with her devil fruit like removed. I'm not saying she's weak, but she's severely debuffed if she doesn't have the use of her devil fruit. And we know that the only way she could really use her devil fruit powers to steal souls is if you're fearful of her. And I don't think that Luffy and the rest of the Straw Hats, besides maybe like Nami and Chopper, like would really go ahead and give their souls to Big Mom by being fearful of her.
Definitely. I think that I think someone else, maybe from the Greater Alliance, will fight off Big Mom or hold her off. And I think once Kaido's defeated, Big Mom will kind of be like, "Yo, I'm out of here. This is kind of over." Like she'll recognize the defeat and she'll kind of retreat. But I would never say that. I don't think that she'll actually fight and be defeated in this war.
I think she could be defeated. It all depends on where we go. So if we go to Elbaf next, if Elbaf really is like the next stop on the tour, then I believe that Big Mom would have to be defeated because I don't want to see Big Mom chasing them again.
Oh, I don't think she'll chase them. I don't. I just don't think that she'll actually provoke an attack anymore if she sees Luffy take out Kaido. Like I don't look at One Piece as being like a very linear story where you need to see Luffy like systematically take down people that are like stronger than him for him to kind of get past that level in his journey.
I think it's I think it's possible that Luffy might make it back to Whole Cake Island. You got to think of what Katakuri asked him when Katakuri was defeated. Will you come back to defeat Big Mom? And Luffy's like, yeah, I'll be back. I'm gonna be Pirate King. I'll beat the crap out of her. I also like to imagine. I'd love to see Katakuri. Excuse me. I'd love to see Katakuri in the future of this story. I would almost like to see him more of like a mentor to Luffy to unlock his Devil Fruit Awakening.
Definitely. I don't. I think that'd be really interesting after this war if we got like another time skip and maybe Katakuri filled that role, because I think this is one of the things that like Rayleigh obviously couldn't like provide to Luffy, not being a Devil Fruit user himself. He's not able to show him how to unlock or take his Devil Fruit power and bring it further. But someone like Katakuri for sure could.
Well, we saw that Katakuri is like the exact same type of Devil Fruit and fighting style as Luffy, right? They're very similar on so many levels, but Katakuri was always the higher level than Luffy. I believe that the only reason Katakuri lost was because of the difference in willpower. Katakuri was fighting for his family that didn't give a crap about him, and Luffy was fighting for his ideology and all of his friends, who he loves.
Uh, yeah, there's a lot there for sure. I like starting with the Devil Fruit. Oda was very specific to go back and reclassify Katakuri's Devil Fruit from a Logia to a special Paramecia. And that was the intent, I believe, to place in the viewer's mind that, Luffy could have a special Paramecia. We never said he couldn't. And maybe this is a limitation on his ability to use his Devil Fruit 100%. So I think that that will definitely happen, and Luffy will be able to, change the surroundings around him to rubber. This could work to his advantage for various reasons. And then regards back to Katakuri losing to Luffy, Katakuri let Luffy pass. He didn't lose. Katakuri said, "Hey, you have somewhere to be," kind of thing. I'm just gonna lay down on my back. He wasn't incapacitated. He wasn't sleeping. he was talking to him from the flat of his back, which was, go ahead, get out of here. I know you have somewhere to go.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I believe that the only reason why Katakuri would do something like that, he let Luffy pass because he realized that if the battle went on any further, that eventually Luffy would surpass him and defeat him. It's the difference in ideology. It's your ideology and your hockey in this series is directly related to your power, as we can see with hockey.
Definitely, but Luffy just used Snake Man, and he wouldn't been able to go Gear 4 again, and Katakuri just would have could have ended that battle right after that. And Katakuri already knew that once Luffy uses the transformation, that he takes time to recover. He already saw that when he went, Gear 4, you know, like
Man.
Bound Man, thank you. Yeah, he already saw that, so he knows like, hey, all I have to do is survive this, and then he is no hockey for 30 minutes, 5 minutes or whatever it is.
I agree with you to a certain extent. I mean, we can sit here and argue all day over was Katakuri defeated or not, but the point is he's sympathetic to Luffy, and I think he could totally maintain like a mentor role going forward in the story.
Oh, for sure. If not like in a way, in a capacity of almost a subordinate, right? I think he is envious of Luffy and the fact that he has real friends and people that rely on him and believe in him because they want to. And in Katakuri's relationship with his family, it's a little bit more toxic than that. It's more of a codependency based on the environment that the Big Mom pirates are in.
I agree, but I don't believe that Katakuri would be somebody that would be classed as a subordinate. He's very strong and he has his own will. I think he would definitely be more of like a supporter or a sympathizer than a subordinate.
Definitely, but if he ever shows up into a big battle to fight for Luffy, I'm calling it now. I'm gonna reclassify him as a subordinate.
Okay, go for it. So I think it's pretty much confirmed that the Scabbards know Ryo'o, which is Armament Hockey 2.0. What I thought was very interesting that I pointed out in the chapter as well is Kaido mentioned specifically that it was Odin's Ryo'o, that it was like his Armament Hockey 2.0. Do you want to speculate on that?
Definitely, and I do want to point out that we're going off of the original, you know, the translations here.
Yeah,
So
we're going off the fan subs. Unfortunately, the official translation wasn't available as it normally is. So, surprise!
yeah, so it would be really interesting if in this one he says, "Oh, this is Odin's Ryo." It could be translated to this feels like Odin's hockey or something like that, and it could be that was the only other time in history he's ever had that type of armament hockey used against him. I don't think it's called Ryo anywhere outside of Wano. I would imagine that in the sea they call it a different form of armament hockey. Thinking of Wano being a closed off nation, it probably goes by a different name.
I would agree with you, but I like to imagine that this technique was created in Wano, as we could see with like the black blades, and I believe that this is also the way that the poneglyphs are formed by pouring your hockey into an object.
Definitely, I could see this as being an evolutionary of a technique to create a black blade or a black, poneglyph quicker, right? By pouring this type of hockey into it.
I think it
For
depends on
sure.
how you pour your hockey into it. Like you have the ability to pour your hockey into something, right? Temporarily to turn it into a black blade, right?
Yep, Zoro does this today.
So a permanent black blade would just be regulating the flow of hockey over time to eventually turn the blade black. Would you agree?
Definitely, but I think if you're going off of that, there might be, if you use like Ryo for an example, you might have the ability to pour that hockey in a better way. You might have more mastery over it, so you might be able to turn your blade blacker faster than
I
most.
I agree. I think the ability of Ryo is being able to pour your hockey into something at such a high rate it becomes chaotic and explosive.
Oh, 100%. And then, the more your ability to tune that in a more constructive way of pouring it into something increases the power. Think of it like, a hose when you put like a finer tip nozzle on it. You have all that, pressure built up. Your hockey, if you're able to funnel it into something more efficiently, you're absorbing more of that haki into, either like a Ryo blast like Luffy's perfecting, so to speak.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you, but knowing that technique and being proficient with it would allow you to create something like a black blade or something like a poneglyph even easier because that resistance is lifted.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, they haven't really, they're that's all, we're of course we're speculating. They haven't really said that, oh, you need to use Ryo to turn a blade black, but I would foresee it as, being more proficient would cause you to turn your blade black faster for various reasons.
I agree with you, and the whole reason why I think that the poneglyphs utilize a similar technique and that they're similar in construction to the black blades is one, they're developed on Wano. Two, with the voice of all things, you're able to hear the poneglyphs. Three, that would only really make sense if they had willpower. So I would imagine that the willpower is being sensitive to the hockey that's been poured into it to turn them into poneglyphs in the first place.
Definitely, I completely agree. And it's really interesting because when you think the voice of all things, is that just being like, and I hate to say like, hockey sensitive in a way? We're able to feel the essence of other people's hockey within objects. And we could kind of see this with Momo talking to Zoe, right? Living things have hockey. Everything around you have hockey. So, and Luffy talking to, the great sea beast or understanding them, taking them by storm or shock rather. The voice of all things could just be that ability to, feel and understand people's hockey.
I would agree. So the voice of all things is real different to what Momo kind of exhibited though. So the voice of all things is being able to hear everything, and I would agree with you that you would have to, I believe it's some sort of extreme hockey sensitivity because we know that animals have hockey, like you said. So you can see the animals and you can communicate with them. You can hear them. However, in not all instances can the animals hear you. The only time we saw this is with the Sea Kings that heard Roger when he heard them. But that could be chalked up to the Sea Kings just being extremely intelligent, as we've seen before. And also, the other time that we saw this was when Momo communicated directly with Zunisha and commanded Zunisha after hearing Zunisha's cries.
Definitely. And, speaking about that, do you, something I think we've talked about off of this, obviously, was, maybe Momo in a way like channeling Zunisha and bringing Zoe, the rest of the Mink tribe, to Wano, in a way, right? Subconsciously.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I believe we know that the Minks have some kind of contract or deal with the Kozuki clan. I like to imagine that the Kozukis are the ones that initially gave Zoe to the Minks to live on. So I think it would only be fitting that the Minks could possibly come back to Wano. All of them could possibly come back to Wano and aid the Kozukis in this troubling time, since they have that pact.
Definitely. And, I just want to go back to the chapter real quick. I really want to talk about the Marco Perospero thing. I definitely called this, and I know not here, but Marco, leaving and saying, hey, I think I saw something in the waters back there. And I was like, yo, that's Perospero, like 1,000%. Um, and we still don't know if that's true. All we know is that they're in conflict with each other. We didn't, see it, but, like totally, but, it was brought up. What do you think's going to happen with that?
I just didn't think the timings matched up, to be completely honest with you, because I felt like Marco kicked all the Big Mom pirates, including Perospero, down the fall, and then he gets to Wano or Onigashima, and then he's like, "Oh, I passed something on the way. I'm gonna go back and check it out." So I don't think that Perospero is necessarily directly related to that shadow that Marco saw at sea. However, I do believe that battle is going to be cool. I don't think Perospero is real cool from like a 1v1 battle perspective, so I find it's going to be really interesting to watch him get his ass kicked, hopefully, by Marco showing off some of his new techniques over the time skip.
Oh, definitely. When you look at Perospero, he's definitely not, on the level of commander, and Marco being, the first division commander of the Whitebeard Pirates or ex-Whitebeard Pirates, he's definitely super outclassed there.
Yeah, I think Perospero's biggest advantage, at least, is his ability to control Big Mom, and he's got like some authority or clout when he's talking to her.
Yeah, but she's going to be so far away from, unless, he has an ability to get Big Mom to him to like defend him, so to speak, and that'd be a very interesting battle, Marco v Big Mom.
I don't think they're that far at all, though, because it said Marco and Big Mom, or Marco and Sparrow currently fighting in like the front of the banquet hall, and we know that Big Mom's on like the execution platform, messing with Luffy right now.
Definitely. So I could see Big Mom getting distracted and maybe fighting Marco.
I would think that would be pretty dope too. I think that Sparrow is obviously going to cause a division between the Beast Pirates and the Big Mom Pirate.
That's true. I mean, he never agreed to this alliance. This has all happened without him. And like you brought up, he has a big say within that allegiance. And once he knows that the Beast Pirates, or he gets the sense that the Beast Pirates might lose, I think he'll realize that this alliance is not in their favor.
Yeah, I totally agree. But so what I also find really interesting in terms of like this whole declaration of the alliance and with the new Onigashima project and everything is they're like, oh, well, we're going to go find an ancient weapon. I think that's foreshadowing to once they're defeated that perhaps the Straw Hats are going to come upon an ancient weapon.
I think we already have, right? I think we've come across like a few
Yeah,
ancient
we saw
weapons.
Shirahoshi and we saw Pluton, apparently. Well, secrets about Pluton were buried in Alabasta. I don't know if the weapon supposedly is in Alabasta itself, but we've definitely seen Poseidon. That means
Definitely.
Uranus is still the one that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting how that's going to play out, how these, cataclysmic weapons will play a factor in the reshaping or the telling of the story too. You can look at Poseidon being the one that maybe is able to open up the seas again, right? By leveraging the power of the Sea Kings and maybe, destroying or systematically taking down, parts of the Red Line. Something crazy like that.
I agree with you. I think Pluton initially was the ancient weapon that created the Red Line. And I think that Pluton is going to have the ability to destroy the Red Line as well.
Oh, for sure. I think all of these, cataclysmic weapons have their, the ability to do extremely, world-changing events. Whether or not it has to be, the same weapon that shaped the Red Line and the Grand Line again. It would be interesting if that plays out.
So, do you think that there's going to be an ancient weapon, perhaps, at Laugh-Tale?
Honestly, I've been thinking about this a lot, right? And it's how many big wars are we gonna have left, right? I know you and I are on the same page about the Shanks Davy back fights being another interesting thing that might happen at Elbaf. Do we think that there's no skirmish there? It's going to be like a very interesting, arc that's more about that. And do we think there's going to be another big war against the world government? And if that happens, is that going to be at Laugh-Tale, aka Raft-Tale, or is it going to be somewhere else completely?
I think I think the war with the world government is going to be after Laugh-Tale. We know that there was a prophecy. I forget who made it. Oh, Whitebeard made it, that after the One Piece is found, there's going to be a war the likes the world's never seen before. And then Doflamingo currently made the prophecy about the Throne Wars, which we're currently in right now for the Yonko status and then for Pirate King. So I think the current war that Luffy's in right now is a war for Yonko status. I think after he defeats Big Mom and Kaido here, he's officially going to be declared a Yonko. And then Luffy's going to be that step closer to becoming Pirate King.
That makes complete sense. The only thing that I would like to see if that was the case, if we're jumping into like one era into almost the next in terms of the power struggle, there would have to be another time skip. I would really hate for us to be like, oh, Luffy's on Yonko. Now we're going to go ahead and go into this other era of unseating the world government right after. Like, it would just feel like we're racing to a conclusion.
I would agree with you, and I hope this isn't one of those situations where the editors kind of like pressure the mangaka to make things happen, kind of like wrap everything up. I think One Piece is kind of beyond that because it's like the cash cow of Shueisha, and Weekly Shonen Jump. So I don't think they do anything to like cut it short or make it have like a speedy end. I do believe that there's still the potential for another time skip. However, I don't know how I feel because I kind of want to see like Luffy power through it through like the power of friendship, and I believe that he still has some more things to learn, and he still has more forms that he messed around with on Ruskaina that we have yet to see. I'm a big proponent of another form of Gear 4, like a Lion Man, which utilizes Conqueror's Hockey, since we've already seen Observation and we've already seen Armament Hockey.
See, I would really like to see instead of like another Gear 4, a improved version of his Devil Fruit, right? Like that fully awakened Devil Fruit. I think, that plus Gear 4, if he had the ability to change his surroundings when he's in like even Bound Man, right? Would just change the dynamic of how people would have to fight and engage him in combat.
So I think Gear 5 is going to be the technique in which he utilizes his Awakened Devil Fruit. Because we see that Luffy names his gears pretty much as he utilizes new techniques. So he utilized blowing into his arteries and to make his blood pump faster so he could go like gear second, then he like blew into his bones. So that's using like the stretchiness of his fruit, right? So that's 2 and 3. Gear 4 is Luffy using his haki with the properties of his devil fruit to increase his battle potential or his battle power, right? That's what Gear 4th is. So we've seen that he's got one specialization for armament, he's got one specialization for observation. We're just waiting on the Conqueror's Hockey. Do you know what I'm saying?
Definitely. I would think that there'd be a rendition of like Bound Man like V2 with now like Ryo'o before any type of Conqueror's Hockey transformation.
I would agree. I would agree that that's the way it's kind of going. But since Luffy just learned it, I don't necessarily know if you can fully integrate it with a Gear 4 for him yet. But we have seen that with Luffy, one of his biggest strengths is that he's not really intelligent from like a normal person or a book learning perspective, but when it comes to battle intelligence, he's off the charts.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to he puts everything on the line, right? And I think that's part of his personality. And I think because he just learned Ryo, like, and he probably already played around with this in Gear 4 already, just off screen, 100%. I think we will see some Ryo in Gear 4 against Kaido. There will have to be. It will be near impossible for Luffy to cause any real damage to Kaido without it.
Oh, I totally agree with you, but however, you got to think with the Ryo 2, like, so does it really depend on your attack before you initiate the Ryo since you're not actually physically making contact, or do you simply have to touch somebody or something and just pour your hockey into it?
So if you go back to the chapter and you look at the explanation, you pull your hockey up to a point and then you release it. So I would imagine like a Gear 4 Luffy would pull all his hockey and start circulating around his body because it's kind of like momentum, right? The faster you have that flowing when it releases, it's like mass times velocity, right? It's gonna be more force.
Oh yeah, I agree with you, but force is mass times acceleration. You describe
Yeah, my
momentum.
bad. My bad. Velocity and acceleration. Let
You're
me
good. You're good.
correct that.
You know some constants out there, but yeah, I totally agree with you. I think. Do you think that Luffy is going to be able to defeat Kaido with Ryo alone? Do you think Luffy is going to be able to 1v1 Kaido?
I think it will start as a 1v1. Do I think he'll be able to finish him 1v1? I think just like the Doflamingo fight, right? I think he will have support early on. They'll cause very valuable damage as a team initially. I think Luffy will get not incapacitated, but in a state where he needs to rest. And you kind of see this through every major battle that that kind of occurs. Like if you go back to Crocodile, Luffy, fighting him initially and getting incapacitated and kind of losing, and then evolving from that. I think Kaido, their first fight, he lost, but he didn't learn anything. What he learned was, oh, Kaido is too strong for me to pierce with just armament hockey. There needs to be the next evolution of that. So I think you'll see him with a couple other people, like maybe the Scabbards, since they're all standing around him, cause significant damage that will take Kaido down a notch. Luffy will learn something and then be able to 1v1 him with significant damage, just like Doflamingo, had that significant damage that he was constantly repairing, with his devil fruit throughout that battle.
I agree with you. Um, However, I don't think Luffy's going to be able to 1v1 him outright. I think it might have to be like a consistent team effort, though. I definitely think if that's the case, though, if it's a consistent team effort, then there's going to be casualties.
I think there's definitely going to be casualties. We're kind of quote unquote in the end game now, right? If we're looking at, technically Luffy's already got Yonko status, right? He's not really looked at in the way of, officially being a Yonko from other Yonkos, but they're kind of calling him the fifth emperor of the sea, right? Already. This is kind of the icing on the cake for that, for all the other Yonkos to be like, oh no, he's serious now. So in regards to him being able to 1v1 another Yonko, I think he has to, right? It's for us to get into our minds that, hey, Luffy is on that status now. He's already held his own against Big Mom. He already took down Katakuri. We can talk about that another day, but I look at that as a win for Luffy at the end of the day. Even though I think that Katakuri kind of let him, go past. I think if the fight was to go on, and Luffy would eventually have still won, but he would have missed the ship, and then it would have been a nightmare for them to escape, and they probably would have never made it out of Whole Cake Island.
I agree with you. Um, However, yeah, where were we?
Sorry, I said a lot there. So just to recap, he's got a 1v1 a Yonko, and it's not going to be Shanks, so who else is left? Um, he's gonna 1v1 Blackbeard, but I think Blackbeard, by the time that fight happens, um, Blackbeard, because of his Devil Fruit power, is going to be so challenging, right? So we have to see him, get to that level, and I think this is a nice stepping stone with Kaido.
I agree with you. I just don't understand why Luffy, if he needs to defeat a Yonko outright, like we see that Kaido's arguably like one of the hardest Yonko, if not the hardest Yonko to beat right now.
Do you think Kaido could beat Shanks?
I mean, we don't know, but from all we've seen is that Kaido is immortal.
I think, yeah, I think there's an interesting thing about that with Kaido, right? I think his skin is so tough that normally attacks don't affect him 1,000%. But I do think that there's a tactful reason why Kaido turned back from entering in the Great War when he was intercepted by Shanks, right? For whatever reason.
I honestly just think he didn't want to make like an enemy of the world government and get them all over Wano.
But he was already en route, right? He would have thought that through. What would have Shanks said to him that have prevented him from continuing?
Yeah, but that's like a really crazy relationship too, because maybe Kaido was actually going to aid Whitebeard.
Oh, that's what I 100% think he was going to do. I think he was going to go aid Whitebeard, not aid the government. I 100% think that's what it would be. I think Shanks believes that there needs to be a world government because all the other Yonkos aren't really like him, and they would probably do more harm than good.
I agree with you. I find Shanks to be like the great balance of One Piece. Like in the universe, he's the one that understands like everything needs to be in balance, which is why I think he warned the Gorosei about Blackbeard, because Blackbeard's the one that's gonna tip everything over, and the whole world is gonna go into chaos.
Definitely. I think there's also Sengoku and Garp that understand that, right? Sengoku and Garp aren't evil people, but they're on the Navy, right? They're in the government. They understand everything comes in balance. When, Shanks arrived, Sengoku, partnered with Shanks and understood the direction that he wanted to go. He didn't want that fight to proceed any longer. And he conceded when Shanks asked for the bodies of Ace and Whitebeard.
Yeah, I agree, but unfortunately, we're no longer in a time where a man as sympathetic and compassionate as Sengoku is in charge of the Marines. Now we have a literal hothead, so it just goes to show that the whole world is being set up for chaos right now. And I think Blackbeard, if he hasn't already, he's definitely going to throw everything off balance. And I think that's just the big plan, is just chaos. And we refer to Blackbeard as from like the faction of the chaotic D's. Like he just wants to destabilize the world. Like we can't really see his motivation, but he is still a member of the D's, so they have to have some kind of understanding all the way back to like their formation, you know.
Definitely. I like how you tied that together. Destabilized. That was nice.
Thanks, man. I try, but do you have anything else you want to talk about or discuss right now? I think this was a pretty good review, and the discussion was pretty awesome.
Definitely. No, I'm good, bro.
Okay, again, thank you for listening to the Void Century podcast. This is Adam and Matt. Matt, do you want to say anything before you go?
Take care, guys. Thanks for listening.
Awesome. Thanks for sailing with us.